All right, so today we're diving deep into the origins of the U.S. Constitution.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, the document itself, the creation process, all the players
All
involved.
that good stuff.
Exactly, and I think most people, know the basics.
Yeah.
But something I find really fascinating is the fact that the entire Constitution
Mm-hmm.
is actually shorter than your average high school essay.
Really?
Like, when you think about it, it's pretty remarkable.
It is. It is.
What does that tell us about, like, the mindset of the framers back then?
Well, it's remarkable, isn't it? That level of brevity.
Yeah.
It speaks to the fact that they were creating a framework, not like an exhaustive rule book, right?
Right, yeah.
They left room for interpretation, adaptation, and of course, a whole lot of debate.
Oh, yeah, definitely a lot of dig.
And speaking of frameworks, we can't forget what came before the Constitution,
Ooh.
the Articles of Confederation.
Okay, so the Articles of Confederation?
It was the nation's first attempt at self-governance, after declaring independence. And, well, let's just say it had some serious flaws.
Not exactly a smashing success.
Not quite.
What went wrong there?
So the biggest issue with the Articles of Confederation was the lack of a strong central government.
Okay.
They were so wary of replicating the monarchy that they just fought to overthrow,
Right, of course.
that they kind of swung too far in the other direction.
So, like, overcorrection.
Yeah, exactly, like a pendulum swing.
Okay.
No power to tax, no standing army, constant bickering between the states.
Oh, wow.
Not exactly a recipe for a unified nation.
Yeah, that sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It kind of was.
So they traded, like, King George for 13 mini-kings.
Basically. Yeah, and it wasn't working out so well.
It doesn't sound like it.
Yo.
Was there, like, a specific event that made everyone realize, okay, we need to fix this?
Yeah, well, there were many contributing factors, but Shays' Rebellion in 1786,
Oh, yeah.
that was a real wake-up call.
Okay.
You had farmers in Massachusetts
Mm-hmm.
burdened by debt and economic hardship, rising up against the state government.
Interesting.
It was short-lived, but the fact that it happened at all,
Yeah.
really exposed how weak the central government was under the Articles.
So it was like the straw that broke the camel's back.
Pretty much.
A little rebellion to get the ball rolling.
You could say that.
It seems like sometimes you need a good crisis to force people to the negotiating table.
Sometimes that's what it takes.
So that brings us to the Constitutional Convention, right? Philadelphia, 1787. Give us the scene setting. Paint us a picture.
Okay, so picture it. A sweltering summer in Philadelphia.
Ooh, yeah, I can imagine.
55 delegates from 12 states gathered to hash out a new system of government.
Wow, 12 out of 13. That's pretty good.
Yeah, Rhode Island, interestingly enough, decided to skip this whole party.
Really? They
Huh.
just, like, stayed home?
Yep, just sat this one out.
Wow. Makes you wonder what they were thinking.
One can only wonder.
So we've got these delegates. Where are they meeting?
Well, presiding over this momentous gathering was none other than George Washington.
Of course, George Washington makes sense.
Right. A figure who brought instant legitimacy and, let's be honest, probably a bit of intimidation to the proceedings.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, just his presence alone.
Talk about pressure.
Right.
So he's there. Who else? I'm guessing he wasn't the only big name in the room.
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay.
This was a gathering of some of the brightest minds in the newly formed nation.
Okay, give us some names.
So you've got James Madison, often called the father of the Constitution.
Okay.
He came armed with the Virginia Plan, a blueprint for a three-branch government with checks and balances.
Checks and balances, okay.
A pretty revolutionary concept at the time.
Yeah, that's huge.
And we can see his fingerprints all over the document we have today.
Interesting.
Then you had Alexander Hamilton,
Well, of course, Alexander Hamilton.
a staunch advocate for a strong central government.
Right.
And of course, you can't forget Benjamin Franklin, the elder statesman.
Okay, yeah, so we've got the young guys, and we got some, like, wisdom and experience coming from Franklin.
Exactly, lending his wisdom and experience to the debates.
Okay, so that's quite the lineup.
Yeah, it was quite the event.
I'm sensing some, like, strong personalities in that room.
Oh, absolutely.
Probably not all agreeing on everything.
Definitely not.
So were there any, like, major clashes during these debates?
Oh, most definitely.
Okay, good. Give us the drama.
They weren't just sipping tea and politely agreeing with each other.
I was going to say, because I imagine it was pretty heated.
Oh, yeah. The convention was marked by some intense debates.
Hold on.
particularly on the issue of representation.
Representation, okay.
How should states be represented in this new government? Right.
Right.
Larger states favored representation based on population.
Okay, that makes sense.
More people, more power seemed logical to them.
Right, fair enough.
Smaller states, understandably, wanted equal representation, regardless of size.
Yeah, so you can see both sides. You can imagine how quickly that became a sticking point.
Oh, absolutely. A major point of contention.
And it makes me think about how those debates still resonate today.
Oh, for sure.
You know, we see similar dynamics in our current political landscape,
Absolutely.
especially regarding issues like the Electoral College
Mm-hmm.
and the influence of smaller states in the Senate.
Yep, it's all connected.
It's fascinating.
It is.
So how did they, bridge that divide back then? How did they overcome that?
Well, they did what any group of brilliant, strong-willed individuals would do.
Okay.
They hammered out a compromise.
Okay, I like
The
that.
result was the Great Compromise,
Ooh, the Great Compromise. I've heard of that.
a rather ingenious solution that created a bicameral legislature, 2 houses of Congress.
Okay, 2 houses, all right.
So you have the House of Representatives,
Mhm.
where representation is based on population, giving larger states more sway.
Okay, so the big states get their way there.
In the House, yes, but then you have the Senate, where each state gets 2 senators, regardless of size,
Okay.
providing those smaller states a voice.
So it's like a balancing act.
Yeah, a delicate balance.
Okay, bicameral legislature, checks and balances. It's all starting to sound familiar.
It's all coming together.
But I have a feeling representation wasn't the only hot-button issue they tackled.
Oh, you're right about that.
What else were they grappling with?
Well, there was another elephant in the room,
Ooh.
one that was impossible to ignore: the question of slavery.
Yeah, of course, you can't talk about the Constitution without talking about that.
Exactly, and this is a deeply complex and sensitive issue,
Oh, boy.
and the delegates were deeply divided on how to address it.
That's a topic that could derail any conversation, even today.
Oh, absolutely.
How did they even, approach such a divisive issue in the context of creating this new nation?
Well, it was a moral and political tightrope walk.
I bet.
Ultimately, they arrived at what's known as the 3/5 compromise,
The 3/5 compromise, okay?
a deeply flawed solution that reflected the really difficult realities of the time.
Yeah, you have to consider the context, right?
You do.
But still, it's hard to hear about.
Absolutely.
So essentially, each enslaved person would be counted as 3/5 of a person.
Yes, for the purposes of determining representation in the House
Right.
and for taxation.
Wow.
It's a decision that, looking back, carries a lot of ethical baggage.
It definitely does.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
It's a reminder that even brilliant minds can make compromises that are later viewed as morally reprehensible.
A stark reminder.
Makes you wonder if they could have foreseen the long-lasting consequences of that decision.
Yeah, it makes you think. Yeah, it really does make you think about the complexities of history.
Absolutely.
But while we're on the topic of these debates and compromises,
Yeah.
let's not lose sight of another major point of contention:
Okay, okay.
the balance of power between the federal government and the states.
Right, because having just escaped, the clutches of a powerful centralized monarchy,
Mhm.
they were naturally wary of creating a system that might lead to tyranny again.
Exactly, the fear was real.
So how did they strike that balance?
That was perhaps the most delicate dance of the entire convention.
I bet.
They had to create a system that could effectively govern the nation as a whole,
Right.
but without trampling on the rights and powers of individual states.
Yeah, you don't want to swing too far in the other direction again.
Exactly. So the solution they came up with was federalism,
Federalism, okay.
where the Constitution outlines specific powers for the federal government.
Oh, like what kind of powers?
Things like declaring war, coining money, and regulating interstate commerce.
Okay, so all those powers that had caused so much chaos under the Articles of Confederation.
Precisely. They needed a way to address those weaknesses.
Makes sense.
But they also made sure to reserve other powers specifically for the states.
So it's like a carefully choreographed dance,
I like that analogy.
with the federal government and the states each taking turns leading and following.
A delicate balance.
Yeah.
For sure.
And you're right, we still see this tension playing out today
Oh, absolutely.
in debates about everything from healthcare to environmental regulations to gun control.
It's woven into the fabric of American politics.
It's fascinating to see how those early debates continue to shape our political landscape.
It's a testament to the enduring legacy of those debates.
Yeah.
And it also highlights the genius of the framework they created.
How so?
By leaving some room for interpretation and adaptation.
Right.
They allowed the Constitution to remain relevant as the nation evolved.
So it wasn't meant to be set in stone.
Exactly. They understood that times change and the government needs to adapt.
Okay, so that's how they structured the government itself. But now they have this document. They signed it in September of 1787.
That's right, but that was just the beginning.
Yeah, because now they need to get everyone on board, right?
Exactly. They had a blueprint, but now they needed to sell it to the American people.
I imagine there were some intense marketing campaigns back then.
Well, they didn't have Twitter or social media.
Right. No social media influencers back then.
But the ratification process was definitely a hard-fought battle.
Okay, tell me more about that.
You had the Federalists.
Okay, the Federalists.
Those who supported the Constitution, they argued passionately for a strong, unified nation under a central government.
Right, so they were team strong central government.
Exactly.
Right,
And then
right.
you had the Anti-Federalists.
Anti-Federalists. Okay, so the other side
Who were deeply suspicious of centralized power.
makes sense.
They saw it as a potential pathway back to tyranny.
Right, you can understand their concerns after just fighting a revolution.
Absolutely. They were very concerned about the potential for individual liberties to be trampled.
So essentially, it was like a nationwide debate about the very nature of power and freedom.
That's a great way to put it.
Sounds like something we're still grappling with today.
Oh, most definitely. These themes are timeless.
So how did the Federalists manage to convince enough people to get on board? It couldn't have been easy.
You're right. It was a tough sell, but they had a few secret weapons up their sleeves.
Okay, what were they?
One of them was a series of 85 essays.
85 essays.
Yep, known as the Federalist Papers.
Oh, the Federalist Papers? I've heard of those.
They were published in newspapers throughout the states.
So that was their media platform.
It was the social media of its day.
Okay.
And these essays were penned by three giants of the era.
Okay, who are we talking about?
Alexander Hamilton,
Of course, Hamilton.
James Madison,
Okay.
and John Jay.
Wow, that's quite a trio.
They systematically laid out the arguments in favor of the Constitution.
Like a PR campaign?
You could say that.
Okay, what were some of their main points?
Well, they addressed concerns about individual rights,
Okay.
the balance of power, and the potential for government overreach.
So they were trying to alleviate those fears that the Anti-Federalists had?
Exactly. They were trying to persuade the public that this new system would protect their liberties.
Talk about a dream team of political thinkers.
Well, it was an impressive lineup.
It's incredible to think about how those essays, written over 2 centuries ago,
I know, right?
are still studied and debated by legal scholars and political scientists today.
It's a testament to the enduring power of their ideas.
Yeah, and the clarity with which they were able to articulate them.
Absolutely. They were master communicators.
So how effective were these Federalist Papers?
They were incredibly influential in shaping public opinion.
So they helped turn the tide.
They did. They helped secure ratification.
Okay, so it was a long road,
It was. It was a long and hard-fought battle.
but that they got there in the end.
They did. On June 21st, 1788.
Okay,
New Hampshire became the 9th state to ratify the Constitution.
so that's it. Game over.
Game over. It officially became the supreme law of the land.
Wow, what a moment.
It was a turning point in American history.
You can almost, hear the collective sigh of relief from those exhausted delegates.
I bet they were ready for a vacation.
But wait, didn't we forget something?
What's that?
We've talked about all these compromises and debates, but what about the Bill of Rights?
Ah, yes, the Bill of Rights.
Isn't that like a crucial piece of the puzzle?
You're absolutely right. The Bill of Rights is central to the story of the Constitution.
Because even with ratification secured, those concerns raised by the Anti-Federalists, that fear of a powerful central government infringing on the rights of citizens,
Yeah,
those were still very much alive.
they were. They hadn't gone away.
Makes sense. They had just fought a revolution to break free from a tyrannical government.
Exactly. So their apprehension is understandable.
They wanted to make sure that individual liberties would be protected.
Absolutely. They wanted guarantees.
So how did the Bill of Rights address those concerns?
Well, the Bill of Rights consists of the first 10 amendments to the Constitution.
The first 10. Okay.
Think of it as a safeguard, a list of non-negotiables
Okay. I like that.
that ensured the government's power would be limited and individual rights would be protected.
So they basically said, okay, we hear you. We're going to put it in writing that these fundamental freedoms are untouchable.
Exactly. We're going to make it crystal clear.
It's fascinating to see how this document, born out of compromise and debate, was ultimately shaped by the very voices that initially opposed it.
It's quite a twist in the story.
So let's break down the Bill of Rights. What exactly did it guarantee?
Well, it covers a lot of ground,
Okay.
enshrining those fundamental freedoms we often take for granted today.
Like what?
Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, the right to assemble peacefully, the right to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
Okay, so those core freedoms, the right to speak your mind, practice your religion, all that.
Precisely. The cornerstones of a free society.
And you said petition the government for a redress of grievances.
Yes, that means you have the right to complain to the government without fear of reprisal.
So the right to, criticize the government without getting in trouble.
Exactly. A pretty important right to have.
It's amazing how those rights, which seem so self-evident to us now,
I know.
were once fiercely debated and had to be specifically enshrined in the highest law of the land.
It makes you realize how precious and hard-won those freedoms truly are.
It really does.
And the Bill of Rights didn't stop there.
Okay, what else?
It also protected the right to bear arms,
Okay.
the right to a fair trial, protection against unreasonable searches and seizures, and the right to due process of law.
So it's about, setting boundaries, right? Establishing a clear line in the sand between the power of the government
Exactly.
and the rights of individuals.
It's all about balance, protecting individual liberty while still allowing for effective governance.
It's a reminder that even in a democracy, power needs to be checked and balanced.
A crucial principle.
And it makes you think about how those amendments might be interpreted in our modern world
Oh, that's a great point.
with all the complexities and technological advancements we have today.
It's a whole different landscape.
The founding fathers couldn't have possibly envisioned the internet,
Or social media.
right, or the surveillance technologies we have today.
It's a whole new ballgame.
But the principles enshrined in the Bill of Rights are still incredibly relevant as we navigate these new frontiers.
Absolutely. They provide a framework for thinking about these challenges.
It raises all sorts of questions
It does.
about free speech in the digital age, the right to privacy in a world of data collection, and the balance between security and liberty.
Big questions that we're still grappling with.
It's a testament to the foresight of those who drafted the Bill of Rights,
They were ahead of their time.
that they created a framework flexible enough to adapt to challenges they couldn't have even imagined.
They understood that the world would change and the Constitution needed to be able to evolve with it.
And that's the beauty of it, isn't it?
It is.
It's not a finished product. It's an ongoing conversation,
It's a living document.
a constant process of refinement and adaptation.
Exactly. Always open to interpretation and reinterpretation.
And it's a conversation that we're all invited to participate in.
That's the beauty of a democracy. We all have a voice.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the origins of the U.S. Constitution, I'm curious.
Yeah.
What are some key takeaways that, you hope our listener walks away with? What's the essence of this story?
I think one of the most important things to remember is that the Constitution, for all its grandeur and enduring legacy, right?
Right.
It was a product of, human hands.
Yeah.
Human minds grappling with these incredibly complex issues.
Yeah. It wasn't some divine revelation, right?
Exactly.
It wasn't handed down from on high.
It was a hard-fought compromise, forged in the crucible of debate and disagreement.
It makes it all the more impressive, don't you think?
I think so.
That this group of flawed individuals with all their differing opinions and ambitions
Right.
could create something so enduring.
It's remarkable.
It wasn't perfect, and it had its blind spots,
Of course.
but it laid the groundwork for a system of government that has, for the most part, stood the test of time.
Yeah. It's pretty incredible when you think about it.
It really does speak to the power of, collective effort.
It does. It does.
Even when those involved didn't always, see eye to eye.
Of course, there were clashes. There were disagreements.
Right. But they shared that common goal.
Exactly.
To create that system of government that would, serve the needs of the nation and secure the blessings of liberty for themselves and future generations.
And that's something we can all draw inspiration from even today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They set out to create a more perfect union. And while that journey toward that ideal has been, fraught with challenges and setbacks,
Definitely.
the Constitution has provided a remarkably resilient framework for, navigating those complexities.
It's a testament to their vision and their foresight.
Absolutely.
They created something truly remarkable.
And it reminds us that progress isn't always linear.
It's not a straight line, that's for sure.
There are going to be missteps, compromises that we later regret,
Mm-hmm.
and those blind spots that, only become apparent with time.
That's the nature of progress, I think.
But the key is to keep striving,
Keep pushing forward.
to keep the conversation going, to
Absolutely.
keep reinterpreting and refining
Yeah.
those founding principles in light of new challenges.
That's how we grow as a nation.
Exactly. So to our listener, we've taken you on this incredible journey through the messy, brilliant, and sometimes controversial origins of the U.S. Constitution.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We've explored the debates, the compromises, the clashing personalities, and the enduring legacy.
It's been quite a ride.
And hopefully we've illuminated the fact that this story isn't just confined to dusty history books.
It's a living story.
It's a story that continues to unfold.
Absolutely.
A story that, each of us has a role in shaping.
We're all part of it.
So here's a thought-provoking question.
Okay.
For you to ponder as you go about your day.
I like it.
Knowing what you now know about the Constitution's creation, what aspects do you think are most relevant in today's world?
That's a great question.
And perhaps, even more importantly, are there any aspects that you find, problematic or in need of re-examination?
Especially in light of the challenges we face today.
Right, because the world has changed dramatically since 1787.
Oh, without a doubt.
The challenges we face today, from technological advancements to climate change to social and political polarization, those are in many ways different
Completely different landscape.
from those faced by the Founding Fathers.
They couldn't have imagined what we're dealing with today.
But the principles enshrined in the Constitution, those fundamental ideas about individual liberty, limited government, and the pursuit of a more perfect union,
Those core principles.
those remain as relevant as ever.
They do. They're timeless.
And it's up to each generation to interpret those principles, to apply them to the challenges of their time, and to engage in that ongoing dialogue about what it means to, live in a nation
To keep the conversation going.
founded on those ideals.
That's the key.
And, this deep dive
Yeah.
has only scratched the surface.
There's so much more to explore.
There's so much more to explore, to debate, to understand
To learn and to grow from.
about this incredible document.
It's a lifelong journey.
So we encourage you, dear listener, to continue your own exploration.
Read the Constitution for yourself.
Read the Constitution itself. Delve into the historical context.
Engage in thoughtful discussions with your friends, family, colleagues.
And you might even find yourself inspired to, get involved in shaping its future.
Make your voice heard.
Because that's the beauty of it.
It's a living document.
The story of the Constitution is an ongoing one, and we're all a part of it.
We're all writing the next chapter.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and until next time,
Keep exploring
keep questioning.
and keep the conversation going.
We'll see you next time.